they're going to go, what are my benefits? And
we're recording all of them except
Great.
for the last one for security reasons, because she worked for USAID, the government.
yeah,
But yes, absolutely. And again, thank you, Karen, for this night
no,
and this
thank
week.
you.
It was your idea.
Yeah.
Okay, Holly, start us off.
All right. 1 second. Okay. So everyone, good evening, and thank you so much for coming. I'm Holly Rosenfink, president of the Westchester Jewish Coalition for Immigration. And on behalf of all of us at the organization, we welcome you to our first pop-up series, the second lecture of tonight on refugee resettlement. We planned this event in response to your genuine interest in stepping up to save lives. In the past few months, thousands of Afghan refugees were forced to flee danger and come to America. WJCI stepped up to mobilize our community to do this integral work, and so many of you have expressed interest. Tonight was created for you, and we would love you to get involved. Just yesterday, WJCI successfully notified 5 host groups that are welcoming Afghan refugees imminently to this county. They successfully applied for our funding and were approved for microgrants, pending meeting the criteria. Tonight, I'd like to welcome a very special guest, Ashley McCarr, IRIS co-sponsorship developer about connecting refugees to services. She's going to give you a deep dive. We will be taping it. We'd love you to share it with your communities so they can also know everything that they can do too. We'd love to know right now your name and affiliation in the chat box, and maybe what stage you're in of forming a host group if you're in action or thinking about it. And Marty will give you a bit more detail about the conversation and about the Q&A and where your questions should go. But again, please know we are recording tonight. We'll send out the links tomorrow, and they'll be up on our website. Now I'm going to give the mic to my WJCI teammate, the amazing Marty Michael, who will take over and bring Ashley on. And again,
Thank you, Holly.
for coming.
Thank you. And thank you for pronouncing Ashley's last name so I don't have to do it incorrectly. I am going to read, excuse me. Ashley, welcome. I don't see you, but you're there. So a little bit about Ashley. Ashley McCarr is the community liaison for IRIS, which is the Integrated Refugee and Immigrant Services in Connecticut.
More than a crow?
No,
Oh.
but they have amazing dinner capability.
Everybody mute themselves, please. Okay. She engages congregations throughout the region in IRIS's refugee resettlement work by cultivating community sponsorship partners. Ashley is a graduate of the Yale Divinity School, where she studied religion, literature, and social ethics. Ashley is a writer with an ebook of essays called You Were Strangers. Her writing also appears in Sojourners, Tablet Magazine, and the Washington Post. Welcome, Ashley McCarr.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. It is so good to see this room full of people that are so engaged and really mobilizing your communities. So I'm going to start by just showing a brief video about co-sponsorship. I know most of you have been in this space for a while and you know generally what it is, but I just want to give you a taste because it features co-sponsors and co-sponsored families. And then I'll go into some more nuts and bolts about the IRIS co-sponsorship program. So I'm going to share my screen and just need to find, sorry about that. What I need to show is not coming up. All right.
Take your time, Ashley. It's going to be fine.
Thank you. You'd think by now I would really have the whole Zoom thing down pat, but I'm not a tech person. So, all right, can everyone see that? Can everyone see the screen?
It's
Yes.
perfect. It's terrific.
I didn't know what we expected from this, but we just wanted to help. I think it was my experience in Afghanistan that led me to want to work with refugees.
We've wanted for a long time as a community to concretely help people.
You know, times where we would feel just really overwhelmed by all the things happening in the world. You know, we know what's going on in Syria right now. And some of them may never come because they may not survive another day.
When bad things happen, just watch, because you'll see people coming down.
You can totally do this. You can totally help somebody. Every person has that in them. There's a blessing in that. There's a gift in that. I wish more people could experience.
It's a selfish thing, but it gives me a peace of mind that I am doing something.
The help. That's the best that we can do, I suppose.
My goal is to contribute to this community after going to college. It's really tremendous help they give us, so we gotta give back to them.
Relationships, I mean, this is what makes things good.
For helping you,
No, it's for us because we have so much joy in knowing you.
Meet sisters, I've made brothers. They beside me in the house. They're family.
My friend, oh, he's my mom.
How could I not pick up this opportunity? I'm lucky to be doing this.
Amazing job. You are changing a lot of lives.
So that's just a taste of this amazing mission that you are embarking on when you prepare to co-sponsor a refugee family. I want to clarify a bit. There are different opportunities to welcome a family, and what I'm going to focus on tonight is full community co-sponsorship, and that is a partnership between a community group, a refugee resettlement agency, a local refugee resettlement agency, and a refugee family to empower the refugee family to become independent. And in the IRIS full co-sponsorship model, it's a 1-year commitment. There is a relatively new opportunity that many of you probably have heard of called sponsor circles. That actually emerged in response to the Afghan evacuation crisis, where it's a minimum of 5 people and a commitment of 3 months to welcome an Afghan newcomer or a family. And it does not necessarily involve a local refugee resettlement agency. So that's a different process, which, I can put information about that in the chat and orient you that way. But tonight, this evening, I'm going to focus on full community co-sponsorship, where there's a real, partnership with a local refugee resettlement agency. I also want to clarify that so IRIS has been doing full community co-sponsorship on a large scale since 2016. And it was largely due to in response to the Syrian refugee crisis, and the people of Connecticut really stepped up. And, the phones were ringing off the hook in 2015 of people saying, how can we help Syrian refugees? We're seeing the same, even more so, in response to the Afghan evacuation crisis. And it's very exciting because up until August of this year, we actually were not allowed to partner with organizations across state lines. So the fact that now we can do this regionally instead of just in the state of Connecticut is tremendous. We're so excited to be able to partner with groups in Westchester County as well. So I'm going to share, I'm going to go on the IRIS co-sponsorship website and walk through a few things with you, because there are so many resources there that can help you navigate You can use the resources, they're applicable in other contexts, but they're a wonderful roadmap for, if your group chooses to do so, partnering with IRIS to welcome a refugee family. But I just wanted to mention some of the, we haven't been able to update all of the materials, so some of them are Connecticut centric. So just disregard that. You can do this in your own, in Westchester County, in your communities, and IRIS is very excited to partner with you. So
While
I'm
you're
gonna-
doing that, Ashley, if I could interrupt you for a second, I just want to let everyone know, if you have a question, please put it in the chat so that we don't interrupt Ashley. And then when we have time for questions, I will read questions from the chat. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you so much. So I'm gonna go on to IRIS's community co-sponsorship webpage to show you the resources that we have there and to walk through. I know my focus tonight is connecting refugees to services. So I'm going to walk through some of our materials that will help me do that. And then you can use those materials as resources. So I'm going to start with a document called Steps to Becoming a Co-Sponsor. These are the steps to becoming a co-sponsor, to partnering with IRIS to welcome a refugee family. And it starts with reading the materials on our co-sponsorship webpage, which you can do later. I'll just go through a few of them with you. Attend an IRIS co-sponsorship orientation, which check, you are doing that now. Organize a community co-sponsorship group. Many of you are already in various phases of that. And I know that you had a session earlier tonight about organizing a group, but I am just going to show you a resource that we have for groups that are organized, groups that are newly forming, just to give you a template for structuring a group. And this is not, this is not a rigid structure, it's just guidelines, but it goes through all of the elements, all of the various functional areas of refugee resettlement. So you know what kind of committees you need to have in place. So IRIS strongly recommends that. So we recommend a minimum of 30 volunteers for a full community co-sponsorship. And within those 30 volunteers, a really strong leadership team. That's such a key to a successful community co-sponsorship. And we recommend actually 2 co-chairs of the whole project, and then a number 10 to 12 subcommittees. And I'm just going to go over, I'm not going to go into great detail because you'll have this resource later, but I'm just going to, scroll down and show the various committees that you'll have: a housing committee, welcome committee, interpreters, a healthcare committee, finances, education, public transportation and community orientation, acculturation, employment. So you can use this as a template when you're structuring your co-sponsorship groups, but it's just very key. I think I unshared my screen. Hold on just a second. Oh no, here it is. Okay. So that's a template for organizing committees. And then 2 key elements to have in place is a coordinator who will serve as a single point of contact with IRIS, or you can apply this to another agency if you choose to partner with a different agency. But it's really important to be able to streamline communication. So, IRIS will give you one contact person, and we ask that of groups because, it can be inefficient to be getting questions, which could be the same question for multiple members of the group. So just like streamlining communication. And then, so the primary point of contact with IRIS in this phase will be myself or my colleague, Cindy. We're both the co-sponsorship developers at IRIS, and we're here to serve as a resource for your group while you're forming, while you're preparing, up until the point where you are ready to receive a refugee family. Once you have a family placement and you are at the point of you're going to welcome an imminently arriving refugee family, you'll be assigned an IRIS case manager who is essentially serving as providing oversight for your resettlement of a refugee family. So they are the case manager of the family, but in a co-sponsorship, IRIS is delegating all of the resettlement tasks to a community group. That's why we call it full community co-sponsorship. So IRIS's full community co-sponsorship partners are essentially doing for their refugee family everything that IRIS would do, but you're doing it as a community, and you've had by the time you welcome a family, you will have gone through a long process of preparation and training with IRIS. And then the co-sponsorship case manager is essentially managing your group's resettlement of the family, but they're there as a tremendous resource, and provide support and oversight throughout the process, and have regularly scheduled visits with the family and with the leaders of your group. So two key elements to have in place is that coordinator who's going to be the point of contact with IRIS for the preparation period with myself or my colleague Cindy, and then after that with the IRIS co-sponsorship case manager that's assigned to your group and to the family that you're resettling. And then a second key element to have in place is identify a fiduciary to hold and disperse co-sponsorship funds. The next phase is fundraising, training, and an application. IRIS recommends a range for, committing to a year of resettling providing assistance to a newly arrived refugee family, a range of $10,000 to $20,000, depending on the cost of living, particularly the rental market in your area. It's a huge range because, cost of living varies so much, particularly within Connecticut and, also throughout the region. But the primary use of the funds is going to be providing rental assistance to the family. That's the largest expense. So once you've got your group in some state of formation, once you've got your leadership in place and, the main point person who's going to be the point of contact with IRIS, you are welcome to attend an IRIS co-sponsorship training. And that is 6 hours. Don't worry, we're not going to put you through 6 hours continuously on Zoom. We do it over 3 consecutive evenings. We offer it once a month. So the next upcoming co-sponsorship training is going to be January 25th through 27th, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. on those 3 consecutive nights. And any of you who are part of a group at a various stage of formation are 100% welcome and encouraged to attend. I think the WJCI folks have that information, but I can also send it out to anyone who's interested. And we also have pre-recorded videos of a prior training if people can't make the times that we've scheduled. So that's a big part of the process. And really that's when you go into a very, very deep dive. So another step in this phase, and these aren't all sequential. It doesn't mean that you have to have completed fundraising before you attend training. These are all elements of this second phase, which the fundraising doesn't have to begin before you do training. But another part of this phase is identifying a co-signer for a lease on an apartment, because as you can imagine, no landlord's going to rent to someone that they haven't met yet and has no income or credit history. So yeah, they're going to need their community co-sponsors to co-sign the lease. Initially, you'll be signing a lease, but you're co-signing with the head of household of the refugee family. And you also will need a provider of general volunteer liability insurance. So sometimes that is with the fiduciary. If you're a member of a synagogue and that synagogue is going to be your fiduciary, they might have a volunteer insurance policy that would cover, projects like a co-sponsorship. But if that is not the case with your group, there are other possibilities that myself or Cindy can explain and offer options. So the next step is submitting a co-sponsorship application. I'm going to go into a bit of detail with this because this is where I can walk through connecting refugees to services. So IRIS requires
And
groups.
Ashley,
Mhm.
Ashley, we want to make sure we have some time for folks to ask you questions, and they're very
Okay.
much interested in the social service component. Yes.
Yes. Okay. I'll try to do this quickly and then leave time for questions. So I'm not going to spend much time at the beginning of this application because this is just information about your group. It's sort of an internal strengths assessment. But the second part on location and services, this is where we ask groups to do basically a community assets mapping exercise as part of the application so that you can identify where near you, what neighborhoods or what towns or what cities in your area are going to be the most conducive to a refugee family being able to become independent as soon as possible. And that means, also having access to the services that they'll need in order to become independent. So of course, one of the important components is affordable housing. So we ask groups to do some research on the housing market and to look at affordable housing that's accessible to public transportation, where there are affordable apartments, and just getting the lay of the land in terms of the rental market there, and trying to find areas that are accessible to public transportation. It's not a deal breaker if you don't have that in your area, but it's a tremendous asset when you do. And so for groups that live in places that don't have public transportation, we encourage you to at least research towns in your area that do, as a potential resettlement location. And if that's not viable for your group, to come up with a transportation plan, which would involve driving volunteers, possibly ride shares, other ways that the refugee family can get around. So I've pretty much talked about public transportation. So access to English language classes. So refugees are going to need to learn English as soon as possible. And so we want them to be in adult English language classes, the adults. So you want to look at adult education centers in your area that offer classes, Literacy Volunteers of America. There are other resources, but you want to research that and know what's available for free in terms of adult English language instruction. And then if there are no English language classes for adults in your area, or if they're infrequent, how will your group enable refugees to learn English quickly? Okay, the next piece is the schools. Talk to public school administrators at the local schools in the neighborhoods you've identified, and find out what resources they offer to English language learners and efforts that they can make to accommodate newly arrived immigrant students. You want to identify that's a really important piece. You also want to look into early childhood education options. Are there Head Start or other free school readiness programs in your area for kids age 3 to 5? And are there free discounted daycare options for kids under 3? That's important because that can enable potentially both parents to work if there is if there are options for the kids that are younger than school age. You want to identify healthcare services. So identify healthcare providers who accept Medicaid. It's called Husky in Connecticut, but who accept Medicaid, are accepting new patients, and provide interpreters that can be via video or phone if they don't have in-person interpreters. And then also to identify at least one primary care provider and one mental health provider in your area who fit these criteria. Community health clinics tend to be a tremendous resource. You also want to, familiarize yourself with potential employment opportunities in the area, entry-level jobs that don't require English proficiency. And then you want to identify people who can serve as interpreters in your area. If you are preparing specifically for an Afghan family, the 2 languages you want to look for are Dari and Pashto. Iris is finding that many of the Afghan evacuees that we've been resettling, the primary language has been Pashto. And you want to have at least one person who can interpret in person. These are not professional interpreters. I mean, you're welcome to pay for professional interpreters, but that tends to be prohibitively expensive. So we just ask that you find someone who has, proficiency in at least 2 of these, English proficiency and then fluency, native level fluency in one of these languages. But what you can supplement with that one person is phone interpreters and this amazing resource, a translation app called Tarjimly. I can put that in the chat when we're doing Q&A, where you can get live video interpreters on any smartphone or device. You also want to look into cultural resources, to see if there are communities from the country of origin. I know that many of you are focused on resettling Afghan families, but IRIS welcomes refugees from all over the world. And so we partner with community groups to resettle refugees from, Sudan, DRC, Syria, Iraq, Eritrea, Myanmar. So these are other possibilities if you're interested in resettling people from of other nationalities. We ask groups to see if they have disability resources, if they would have the capacity to resettle a refugee family with a member with a physical disability or a cognitive disability. So that's our, really the, kind of the rigorous application so that we can, just a group can, it's kind of a discernment tool for a group as well to see, what capacities they have in order to resettle a refugee family. And one big piece of this that is not part of the application, but it's definitely part of the committees, that we outline on that sheet is someone who helps the refugee family access public benefits. I believe Jamel was going to talk about that in her session, but I'm not sure. But it's someone who's going to apply at, we call it the Department of Social Services in Connecticut. I don't know what the name, but basically social services, to help the refugee family apply for Medicaid, for SNAP, which is food stamps, and for temporary financial assistance from the state. And I do know that at least in the state of Connecticut, you can do that online now. And I hope that that's the case in the state of New York. But you should find people, something, you probably have retired social workers in your group. No, they do not have to resettle in Connecticut. We are now able to partner with groups across state lines. So we're very happy. Of course, it makes, we wouldn't expect any groups to resettle in Connecticut. I mean, any groups outside of Connecticut to resettle in Connecticut. So no, we've been doing this in Connecticut for 5 years, and we're only now expanding to other regions. So I just know the social services systems in Connecticut. I don't know what the comparable services are in New York, but I know that they're there. It's just going to require research on the part of your group, and many of your groups probably have retired social workers and just very capable people who are going to be able to navigate that. But you're going to need someone, basically a committee whose role it is to help the refugee family apply for those state benefits, namely Medicaid, temporary cash assistance, and SNAP, which is food stamps. So that's all of my presentation. I'd be more than happy to respond to questions.
I don't see anything in the chat. Holly, do you? Because I can't see everyone in the chat, so I don't know.
Yeah, not real. I mean, I haven't asked a few questions. Been answering a few on direct message. I think that anyone should be able to ask a question out loud now.
Yeah, I agree.
Why don't we take some questions, some burning questions you have right now, and just ask away. Ask Ashley.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I was part of a group where we resettled 2 sisters from Africa, and I was the benefits person, and I really didn't know anything, but I did learn, and anybody can learn. But the question I have is that I had to bring them to the department a lot. Like I was driving them there a lot, and then we would sit around for a really long time. And I have to be honest, with COVID, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that now. So you had mentioned that people could do it by Zoom. Do you know if that's actually happening, or if they still expect you to show up at the office?
So again, unfortunately, I'm steeped in the Connecticut context, but I do know that actually in Connecticut, the Department of Social Services is open only by appointment, and you have to do things online. It's not via Zoom. It's just an online application form. So I hope that's the case in New York, but yeah, that's something to be researched.
But I don't mean just for the application. I was bringing them in to talk about employment. I was bringing them in to be recertified. They were constantly having them be brought in for things. So is that also going to be done, do you think, online?
Either online or by phone. Like a lot of these required interviews that have to happen for benefits have been happening by phone. So.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
If I may, because I also work for another organization called CASA, and I have to deal with clients with Social Security and SSI, and it's a nightmare. And I literally spent 3 hours waiting on the phone today to speak to someone. And the next appointment available is for August for SSI. So just want to give you, in New York, in the Bronx, this is because of COVID. None of their offices are open, and they work from home, and they hang up on you when they don't want to speak. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, I will say Social Security Administration is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Department of Social Services, I have found, is better, but Social Security Administration, awful, always been awful, continues to be awful. Yeah. So that's just an unfortunate. Yeah.
I also wanted to just make a little remark on what you said. If you have anyone who has developmental or intellectual disabilities, there is OPWDD, which is who can provide services for people like that. You need to apply, and it's a pretty straightforward process, and it is great. It can support them for the rest of their life.
Wow, that's great.
This is Shira. I have a son with developmental disabilities, and I can tell you working with OPDD is a nightmare. And I
I
mean,
didn't have bad experiences.
Oh,
Where are
good.
you?
Good.
Which
It's-
borough are you in?
it in the Bronx, but it's irrelevant at the moment. But what I also want to say is that if you have to deal with also Social Security issues, I found it very helpful to call my local senators and state senators, because constituent
Oh.
services are very helpful in cutting through some of the red tape. So I've had, different kinds of bureaucratic roadblocks and have found constituent services helpful. So that might be useful.
Interesting. Thank you. I'll try that.
I have another question. I know that we were told that we would get rent assistance and we never did. Do you know how that all works and why some families seem to get it and other families didn't?
You were told you would get rental assistance from where?
From Department of Social Services. And I know that some of the other refugee families did, but some of us didn't. And we couldn't figure out why they got it and others didn't.
I don't know. That is not, I mean, what happens in Connecticut is families get financial assistance that can go towards rent, but it's not designated necessarily as rental assistance. So I don't know. Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, there is some federal funding that comes with each refugee resettled. That's, I think it's about $1,200 per capita that can also go towards rent. But I don't know in terms of rental assistance, unless it was just the cash assistance that they can use for rent. It was rental.
Rental.
Yeah, I don't know.
Are the SIVs, are they entitled to the same benefits as the other refugees?
Yes.
And they can work as soon as they get here like the other refugees?
Yes, although not all Afghan evacuees are SIVs. So SIVs are, for those who don't know, it stands for Special Immigrant Visa. And those are people who assisted the US military in Iraqi and Afghan nationals who assisted the US military are eligible, and then their families, if they receive SIV status, their families get that status. So that is essentially, in fact, they are eligible to apply for green cards pretty soon after arrival, whereas people with refugee status, it's a year after arrival. But many Afghan evacuees do not have SIV status. Their status is what's called humanitarian parole. And it is generally for people who had to flee an urgent humanitarian crisis. It's not a very common, I mean, it existed before the Afghan evacuation, but it's thought to be granted in pretty extraordinary circumstances. So Afghan evacuees who have humanitarian parole are eligible for work authorization and all of those state benefits. The challenge is that we're in an unprecedented time right now. So, these people who are on these US military bases, they're applying for the work authorization on those bases, but they don't have an address yet. So the actual work papers and the Social Security cards are going to a PO box in Washington, DC. And it's not until they get into communities that and have an address that these, the actual work authorization papers and the Social Security card get to them. So there's a delay just by that bureaucratic issue. So yes, they're eligible, but they won't have the actual document that they can show employers to verify that they're eligible to work. It could take like 2 months after they arrive in a community.
I have a a question. The families are released from Fort Dix only when and if they have housing secured, or it's the opposite. They are released and then they have to figure out.
No, they so they're allowed to leave. I mean, once they've met certain requirements, they're allowed to leave, voluntarily. They can walk off the base if they want. But in terms of being sent somewhere, like their travel being facilitated and paid for, they have to either have like a refugee resettlement agency that has accepted the case that the agency is going to resettle them, or some sort of sponsor, like in this less agency based model called sponsor circles. But there are people who have the resources to travel on their own and say they have family members somewhere in the country and they don't want to wait, and they leave themselves. Yeah.
I see. Okay, thanks.
I have another question, if I can. Sorry to keep
Sure.
asking you. Is there like a limit to the amount of money that a family can have in a bank account that cuts them off from services? And are you finding that some of the families from Afghanistan are coming with some money, or no?
So there would be limits, assets limits, in order to be eligible for certain benefits. And I don't know exactly what those limits are, but not for services. So, they could have a lot of money in the bank and still get services from a refugee resettlement agency. But in terms of material benefits, like
insurance.
Yeah.
Like health insurance.
Yeah.
Or food stamps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Are you finding that some of the families are coming with money, or no?
Not many that Iris has resettled.
Yeah.
I have a question. Of the people who are on this group, are any of you involved? Are there any groups that are already started that they may be small, but if that we combined, we could become a host group?
Ashley, I can take that if you like.
Yes.
WJCI is doing that, Amy, and a lot of you are in conversations with us right now. And if you're not, there may be others from your communities that are. So I encourage you, if that's something that you want to do, to reach out to us after this meeting. And that's what we consider ourselves, matchmakers, like in Fiddler on the Roof. We're here for you. We want you to do this work, and we want you to know that you don't have to do it alone. There are congregations all over our community, including Riverdale. We have many people here from there, and Rockland, who are stepping up. And there's really no reason for you not to. So if it interests you, we're here to tell you that you can do it. And that's what we're here for. That's why our micro grant was created. We were given money specifically to help you do the work. And that's basically, WJCI is full of volunteers who just want you to do it, because as I stated in the last presentation, this work is the most rewarding of my life. Nothing comes close. Maybe my children. It's jokes. That wasn't good. I'm married to a British person. He's like dementing my brain and my humor. But anyway, it truly is. And if you were lucky enough to be in our last presentation, we did record it. You know that Jamel was equally, Jamel Wilson from Neighbors for Refugees, so passionate. And she's proof that anyone can do it, because I was in her group and we were just like all of you on this call. We knew nothing. We didn't have Ashley. I mean, we went in blind. We knew nothing. And I know, Karen, you were involved back then too. And many of you were. I know that many of you on this call have done it before, and there may be apprehension in your synagogue or your community because maybe it was difficult last time. Maybe there were things that weren't so easy. It's not all fun and games. I won't sit here and say it is, but it's rewarding. And if you get if you have a great leader, like you heard from Jamel, she was a great leader when we started, and you have a group of people that want to do it, and think about it, you combine forces with other congregations, so there's less work to do. There's less money to raise, there's less volunteers to get together if you're worried about that. And it's very rewarding. You put together an interfaith community, like many of you are here tonight in the Riverdale group that's doing that.
Yes, Holly, that's actually exactly what I was going to say, Amy, that there are a lot of coalitions that we're helping to form of synagogues and other groups that don't have enough money or volunteers or bandwidth. But if we put 3 of them together, we have a coalition that can do it.
So I want to know, like, specifically, because there are people from here from HIR and CSAIR.
Right.
Do any of you know, is there already something that started?
Riverdale is creating, and we'll start being sure that you're invited to all the meetings. Riverdale, Kingsbridge, Marble Hill, and Spuyten Duyvil is creating an interfaith coalition, which will sponsor.
Right, because I was on a Zoom for that, but so. Okay.
So all those synagogues and others are going to be part of this coalition. Tehillah is, Riverdale Temple is, the Presbyterian Church is, coming together as one.
But nothing is solidified yet. There's not
working on it right now. This is part of working on it. Yep.
Okay.
Amy, Marty's working really fast. You're coming in right at the right time. There's a meeting coming up on January 24th that you will want to join.
Yes.
And actually, Rabbi Linda Kahn Schreiner.
Yes. Tehillah. Yep.
At Tehillah, she started it. She's like the mastermind of this. She brought me to speak to a group about a month ago, and she's not giving up until it gets done. She wants your community to be a part of it. And there are many pockets within Westchester that are doing the same thing. Some congregations want to do it alone. Some want to team up.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, if you email us tomorrow and you say, who's in my area? We have pockets in every part of Westchester right now. So there's no reason you should do it alone. Do it with another congregation. Make it a beautiful thing. And come to us with what you need. We want you to do it. So that's why we're here tonight, right?
Thank you.
If you need volunteers, guess what? There are synagogues who can't step up. They just don't feel comfortable. Not now, maybe later, but they have resources for you. They want to join you. So it's actually an ideal situation. And it's a really interesting time. And Ashley knows this, I'm sure, more than anybody, that fundraising isn't as hard as it was 5 years ago. It was political. It needed approval from all over your congregation or your community. But this is more of a humanitarian issue, right? And America was involved. And we all witnessed the fall of Afghanistan. And many of us know people that have been impacted, and it's personal, right? So you don't get any pushback like you did. At least WJCI really hasn't gotten pushback. And that's huge. We have Orthodox synagogues stepping in. We have unaffiliated, the Jewish community members stepping in. And the beautiful thing is we have, the whole community stepping in. So it really is a beautiful moment. The reason we're here also, it's a critical moment for us. It's not a moment we want to look away from. And that's why WJCI got involved to this level. It's not like we were looking to do it. We felt like we needed to, we had no choice. And so we're all really glad that you're here. I don't want to waste your time with questions. Please ask away. Please ask Ashley, ask anybody. Tell us where you are in this.
So is the meeting on the 24th the place where we will kind of solidify who the leaders are, who the groups are? Is that the main focus of the meeting on the 24th?
We're going to try. We've had a few meetings already and have had other issues resolved. We do not yet have a couple of leaders. That will be a strong pitch on my part to find the people who are willing to step up and take that co-leadership position. And it's quite a commitment. So I hope so on the 24th. Hope so.
Thanks.
So I realize the chat isn't open to you guys, and I'm sorry about that. So I'm going to read a few things that have been being messaged because I think they're meant for everyone. First of all, the February 8th information, we will make it available soon, Karen. Please join our newsletter. There's a link at the bottom of our homepage, and you'll see it very soon. And we get that information from our partner, Hyas. And then also Congregation Sons of Israel sent a message that they are happy to welcome more volunteers. And we can put you in touch with them. Julie is on this call from that group. Let me see, who else? Please just, feel free to message me, but please talk out loud now. Make this your time to really ask questions from people who know. From Ashley. Does anyone have any other questions about what you need to do now? Like, where do you go from here tonight? We are going to send you some resources in the next day or so with next steps. But what I advise you to do is find the people, find that core group, find that leader. Or help us let you do that. Help us help you do that. Let's help you, because you will find the people, because we are the mobilizers. We kind of get out there so we can help you find the volunteers. You do need to, make sure you can raise $5,000 to match our funds. And we have a great story right now. A man from Kingston came on our call last week, the town hall, and he's just like everyone on this call. He's never done this before, but wants to do it. So right now, he pulled the group together within a few, he put articles in the paper to because he's in Kingston in the Hudson Valley. So he didn't know what to do. So he put articles in the paper, and within a few days, we had 12 people on the phone the other night. Very dedicated, passionate people. And he's already raised $3,000 towards that 5. The 5,000 is an incentive. It's not the whole thing you'll need, but it's a good start. You will need a fiscal sponsor. If you need us to help you, more information about that, let us know. Anything you need, let us know. But we are going to send out some documents that will be very helpful in the next steps. Something like Ashley showed you during this call. There was like a list that she showed you. It's very comparable. Marty, what else can you think of?
I think that's it. I think the next steps are up to the people sitting right here tonight with our help. Just to remember that we exist, WJCI, in a relatively unusual space, which is right in the middle between the resettlement agencies like IRIS and the refugees and the volunteers. We're in the middle, making connections for everybody, and we have an extraordinary network. So use us for whatever you need. If we can't help you, we can find someone who can help you. And really the initial urgency is to get going on forming a host group because there are, what do we say now, 18,000 left at Fort Dix, and there are other Afghan refugees on what is called lily pads, which I think is a lovely name for it. But what a lily pad is a small military base, a US military base on other foreign soil, like Qatar or Germany or United Arab Emirates. So once the bases in New Jersey are emptied, there will still be more Afghan refugees coming here. It's going to go on for a while. Ashley can probably speak to that also, timing wise. But there is an urgency to getting our host groups formed and moving so that we can get everybody off the bases and then everybody off the lily pads.
You want to say anything, Ashley?
Well, I just want to affirm the coalition building. Like, that is such a huge piece of this. So many of our refugee resettlement partners that have resettled multiple families are coalition, or even just resettled one family. And I'm gonna, we actually have a group called Jewish Community Alliance for Refugee Resettlement. It's a coalition of, I think it's 5 synagogues. And they are preparing to welcome their 5th family. And it's just amazing. And you know what they did, and you know, this is an unusual thing, but I just want to put it out there as a possibility, is they actually the Jewish Federation of New Haven hired someone to be a coordinator. So I don't know if that kind of resource, you know, Jewish federations in Westchester County would have the resources to do that, but that was a wonderful way, you know. And now, like this, she is a coordinator of these 5 synagogues, and they've been able to resettle a refugee family every single year. So that's one unusual model, but just that coalitions are wonderful. It's a wonderful way to collaborate with other communities, and it's great that you have WJCI as that connector and to use the network. So much of my job is matchmaking, which with your groups, WJCI is going to kind of match those. You know, there might be one congregation that is not concerned about fundraising. That's going to be no problem, but doesn't have many boots on the ground volunteers. Whereas another congregation might have a ton of people who could be those boots on the ground volunteers, but the fundraising capacity isn't there. So it's really a wonderful way to just match up capacities and just have this wonderful community building common mission together. So I'm really excited to see where all of this goes.
And we are too, Ashley. We have had the most extraordinary response. I mean, far superior than anything we ever imagined. I will remind you all that we are volunteers. We did get an amazing grant from UJA and the Shapiro Foundation, but every penny of it is going to you guys to do this work. Every penny is going to get, most pennies, sorry, there is some administration that we have to, of course, pay for, but most of the money is going to get 15 to 20 families off the base, and that is the greatest mitzvah for us. And actually yesterday we gave our first 5 grants out, and we were just like thrilled, because it just means that the work is getting done and that people are responding to it and that people are coming off the base. And I do want to add that we are very devoted to ways for your congregation to learn and to get educated, like this event tonight. We are we're very involved in the Refugee Shabbat coming up on March 4th through the 5th, where we are working with every congregation in the county to get them involved. Last year we had over 30 that we know of. We didn't know that we don't know everything that's going on, but we knew of at least 30 that were observing it. We helped around a dozen book speakers. They range from Afghan refugees to Syrian refugees to volunteers. This year, I'm happy to report we have a very long list of refugees who do want to talk. Many of them have been here, but they have extraordinary stories. And we have volunteers that want to tell their story too. And it's an amazing thing to see a volunteer and the refugee they resettled. It's amazing to see their relationship and to see that it changed both of their lives, not just the client, the host too. And so again, we're at info@wjci.org. We're very involved in that right now. So just email us and we feel that it's part of what you're doing. If you are not ready to do this work, it's okay. Go towards Refugee Shabbat, have something beautiful, and get your synagogue ready. And in March, we want you to do this work now, of course, but it's waiting for you. And we encourage you to motivate your community, find others like Ashley said, and we can help you do that. And I think we're over and out, right?
Yes, we are.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think you have 2 minutes.
Thank you.
And I have a 2-minute question.
Okay, 2-minute question, okay.
And that is, there are a lot of people here. I hear from Riverdale, and we're all keep hearing about the Riverdale, Marble Hill, etc. group, which we want to participate in, but who is it? What is it?
January 24th, you'll
Okay.
receive an email. We will all be together, that
Right.
group.
Great.
and we're moving forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all the work you're doing, all of you. I
Pleasure.
really
You're so
appreciate it.
welcome. I have to say something. I didn't realize the chat box was just me talking to myself. So I want to tell you all what I learned during the call that I thought everyone knew. So thank you, Laura, for reminding me. Ashley, in New York State, it's all the benefit, the offices like Social Security are also virtual. So Karen, I think you asked that question.
Yes, yes,
So there you go.
Thanks.
Jamel Wilson did confirm it is online.
great.
She
That's
didn't
great.
say it was she didn't say it was challenging, but again, you know, she's a great resource too.
Yeah.
We have other resources, Karen. If you want to talk to someone who's doing it now, who's been
Yeah.
doing it all through the pandemic,
Yeah, great,
we can hook you up with Neighbors for Refugees and other groups.
great. Thanks, appreciate that.
And also, I want to just end it with by saying that we did have someone from Congregation for Sons of Israel on the call. I think Julie left. There are also groups popping up all over Westchester and Ossining for Refugees, Reset. JCC Harrison is welcoming 9 people, 2 families that are the extended families of the couple that they resettled 5 years ago, which is really beautiful. We are hoping maybe this year, maybe next year. We'll see if we can do everything. We realize we're not superheroes. A community Seder. And there are other ways, like not just Refugee Shabbat, community Seder. The Leffel School is having a beautiful Purim observance that will involve someone directly from Fort Dix talking about the Afghan children and then making an art project and doing an art project with them. We are still involved with Fort Dix. Right now, they're looking for baby formula and baby food. If your synagogue would like to participate in that, please let me know. We will pick it up and take it to Fort Dix. My team probably didn't know that. I didn't tell you yet, but that's happening. So just stay in touch with us. Now that we're public, Marty, why don't we put some information in the chat about like.
We did, but we'll do it again.
Yeah.
I'll do it again, Holly, right now.
Perfect. And then tomorrow night we have a big fundraiser. We have a great fundraising event with a woman. I forget if I said this in the last call. Did I say it this time?
You did, but say it again. Margot is still here.
We have 2 women, 2 amazing women talking about fundraising tomorrow night. One of them kind of pioneered the concept in Canada during the Syrian refugee crisis. And Margot, who's here, has incredible experience at the Berkshire's Jewish Board.
Federation.
Right?
Federation.
And so if that's something you guys are worried about, please come tomorrow night. And the next night, Hope Williams, who I met on Fort Dix, will tell you some some amazing stories and about some of the questions you had, Karen, about during the pandemic. She'll put your mind at ease, I think. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
you.
Ashley.
Thank you so
Super
much.
helpful.
Thank you, Ashley.
Everyone.
Thank
This
you.
is so exciting.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night,
Thank you.
everyone.
Good night.
Holly? Holly, go.
Yeah.
You might be able to save your chat, so if there's information in it that we can
I
then
got the last
share.
one too.
I saved the last one also, but
Okay.
this you should have. I'm gonna stop recording.
Okay.